So if I've ever seen you in a clinic, I usually always ask about what I call the Trinity of Health. So I ask you about your exercise program that you're already doing. I ask you about the sleep, what kind of quality sleep you're getting, and also too the kind of food you eat. Are you following a certain type of vegetarian plan? Are you a carnivore? Are you following keto? And what it might be. And the reason is because all three of those things are significantly related and overlap. And I don't believe you can have one truly without the other. The next thing we talk about is a number of medications that my clients are taking. And I'm not against medications, but what I also implore them to do is to first try to optimize their biology before they just leapfrog and resort to the pharmacology. In this video, I'm going to show you a lesson that I did in a sleep course for Live Well 50. So if you are 50 and older and truly want to be proactive with your health and take charge of your health, and a supportive, informative community and join Elizabeth and I, then please check out livewell50.com. In this lesson, I talk about how we need to work with our natural biological rhythms, our circadian rhythms, and not against them. So many things of what we do in our modern society, unfortunately, are at odds with the way we were designed to be. And then it's not a big surprise that our bodies start to break down and don't function like they should. So I hope you enjoy the lesson, stay tuned to the very end, and we'll see you at the other end of the lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the natural 24-hour biological rhythm that every living organism on Earth has. Even mold, fungus, all the way up the food chain have a roughly 24-hour circadian rhythm that is predicated or anchored by the sun rising and the sun setting, basically sunlight and darkness. We would all be better working with our circadian rhythms, which are millions of years old, versus against our circadian rhythms. The reason why we have that is because it makes sense to have things coming on and coming off at different times of the day. For example, we've talked about all of our healing occurs at night. And every organ in our body has its own kind of 24-hour clock as to when it starts and stops. And the reason is this, is because we don't want too many things going on at the same time. It makes sense that our healing is going to occur when we're in a deep sleep. So therefore, the circadian rhythms that release growth hormone that are responsible for the healing aren't so active during the day, but they're more active at night. So you have this delicate concert of all these different internal clocks working at slightly different times to perform this beautiful music, if you will. So let's talk about the basics of the circadian rhythm. So ironically, if you are having trouble sleeping at night, and getting a good night's sleep actually starts first thing in the morning. So in a perfect circadian world, we are getting up and getting outside within an hour or two of sunrise. So let's say, for example, the sun comes up at 5:30 in the morning. Ideally, somewhere around 6:30 or 7 at the latest, we are outside getting some of that sunlight. And the reason that's important is because when the sun is low on the horizon, we call that low solar angle, blue light is emitted. And the blue light enters our retina. It activates these cells called the melanopsin cells, which in turn communicate with the master circadian rhythm, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And that, once it's activated by the blue light, then that resets all the other clocks in the body. So then our timing now is the way it's supposed to be. There are two other areas, or two other ways in which our natural rhythms are also reset, and that is when we eat food and when we exercise. But the biggest influence on our circadian rhythm is daylight exposure. So even on a cloudy day, getting outside is still enough lux over a period of time to reset that suprachiasmatic nucleus, and therefore getting our body in sync so that we have the best possible chance of functioning well throughout that day, both physically and cognitively. Another important thing that happens is first thing in the morning when we get that blue light and the central clock gets reset, is the timer starts for the melatonin release. So the body then knows 12 to 14 hours after it gets that bright light in the retina, we better release melatonin to get them to sleep again. So a good night's sleep actually starts first thing in the morning, which is why we advocate Getting up in the morning and getting outside and going for like a 15 to 30 minute walk, it's a great way to start your day. If you find the video helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing, and ding, turn on the notifications so that you never miss another one of our videos. All right, back to the video. So besides the circadian rhythm and exercise and food, there's another chemical process that's going on that governs when we sleep, and that's known as sleep pressure. So what happens is the moment we wake up, our adenosine levels are pretty low. Every hour that we're up, the adenosine levels in our brain go up. Once the levels of adenosine reach a certain amount, the sleep pressure starts to increase. The simplest way to experiment yourself with that is if you've ever tried to stay up much longer than you normally do, you will just have this incredible desire to fall asleep. That is the adenosine pressure or the adenosine levels increasing in your brain, telling you it's time to shut it down and go to bed. But we have a workaround, and that's caffeine. So if we take enough caffeine, the caffeine, if you will, parks in the little adenosine receptors, so the brain doesn't think that it's getting tired. So it doesn't really wake you up as much as it blocks the chemical signals that are making you tired. So you could be exhausted, have a bunch of caffeine, and feel like you're doing magnificent. Well, unfortunately, what's happening is the sleep pressure is still building as the adenosine levels increase, but it's being blocked because these caffeine molecules essentially have kind of parked in their parking spot, so the adenosine can't get in there to tell the brain that it's tired. But eventually, as the caffeine starts to get metabolized and broken down, the adenosine gates flood open, and then we have this crash, which is why oftentimes we get into this vicious cycle. People are really tired, they have a bunch of caffeine, they feel almost jittery or wide awake, but then they just kind of crash. And the reason is because the adenosine levels are still building, and finally when the liver breaks down enough caffeine, the adenosine comes rushing in, and that sleep pressure is so incredible that we either go to sleep, nap, or load up on more caffeine and start the vicious cycle over again. Bottom line on caffeine is you want the least amount of caffeine as possible and try to not have any afternoon caffeine at all. Give yourself a 2-week break from caffeine just to find out where you're at, because you may have been having caffeine for so long that you really don't even know what your natural rhythms are, and are you getting enough sleep? Maybe you're only getting 6 hours of sleep, but you're having 3 cups of coffee, so you think you're okay. You stop the cup of coffee and you realize, wow, my natural rhythm is to go to bed a little bit earlier and sleep a little longer. And that's truly what your body may need. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed the lesson. Now remember, this is just one lesson of many that we have at Live Well 50. At livewell50.com, we've got lessons on how to improve your posture, trigger point work, meditation, 5 pillars of fitness for as far as your exercise program. Next month is a big nutritional month. We have live member-only Q&A, so if you have any questions about basically anything aging related, you can ask us, and Elizabeth and I are there to answer those questions. You also get a deep discount on tele sessions, and so if you want to ever communicate with us, or if you want an accounting call or a coaching call, we are there as well to help you. All right, if you have any questions, hope you enjoyed circadian rhythms and learned something, and leave your questions or comments down below, and thank you very much.